Commander Rian Holt stood on the bridge of Earth's last defense station, watching the darkness of space. It was calm. Too calm. Every officer on the bridge felt the same heavy tension in the air. The stars were silent, but everyone knew something was coming. Something that could end everything. Then the alarm hit. A sharp, echoing scream filled the entire station, shaking every metal wall. The red emergency lights flashed, washing the room with a deep crimson glow. Officers jumped from their seats, screens lit up, and warnings appeared everywhere. "Unknown fleet detected," shouted one of the operators. "No, not unknown," Rian whispered. "They're here." The Zorath fleet had arrived. On the giant screen in front of the bridge, the enemy fleet filled the space like a storm of fire. Thousands of ships. Their shapes were sharp, long, and built for only one thing, war. And they outnumbered the human fleet 100 to 1. Earth had no chance in a normal fight. News channels from around the world began reporting live. People saw the sky darken as shadows of enemy ships passed over the planet. Cities went silent. Families rushed into underground shelters. Some cried, some prayed, and some simply stared at the sky with fear. Everyone thought Earth was about to fall. But Commander Rian did not move. He kept his hands behind his back, his eyes calm but sharp. He knew something no one else knew. Something hidden deep under the ocean. Something only a few people had ever seen. He turned to Dr. Lyra Vance, the woman who stood beside him. Her hands shook, but her eyes were focused. "Is it ready?" Rian asked. Lyra nodded slowly. "It's waking, but I must warn you. It's unstable." "It has to be enough," Rian said. "Call the chamber." Lyra touched her wrist device, sending a code few humans even knew existed. Across Earth, under the deepest part of the ocean, something massive began to move. A giant metal door, older than any modern human structure, slowly split open. Water rushed inside like a roaring beast, revealing a huge hidden chamber. Chains thicker than buildings trembled. Lights flickered alive, glowing blue in the darkness. Inside that chamber rested Project Leviathan. Part machine, part living creature, older than any human warship, strong enough to fight an entire fleet. And today, humanity needed it more than ever. But it was still sleeping. Back in space, the Zorath began broadcasting a message. A tall, armored alien appeared on every human screen. His eyes glowed with cold confidence. "People of Earth," he spoke with a deep voice, "surrender. Your defense is weak. Your numbers are small. Your victory is impossible." Officers looked at Rian, waiting for him to respond. Rian leaned forward, his voice steady. "We never surrender." The alien commander laughed, a low, mocking sound. "You cannot win," he said. "You are only delaying your end." But Rian wasn't trying to win with numbers. He was buying time. He turned to Lyra again. "Status." Lyra looked at her screen. Her eyes widened. "It's moving. The Leviathan is waking." The ground beneath the ocean began to shake. Waves rose higher than mountains. The water churned like a storm, glowing with strange blue lines. Something ancient opened its eyes in the darkness. No human had ever seen the full shape of Leviathan. Only glimpses. A glowing spine. A shadow the size of a city. A roar that made submarines shake. Now, the monster machine hybrid lifted itself from the ocean bed. Lights ran along its body, pulsing like a heartbeat. The water thundered around it as it rose, breaking chains that had held it for decades. On the bridge, the operators gasped. "Sir, energy surge detected from the ocean. It's huge, unlike anything we've recorded." Rian did not flinch. "They won't understand until it's too late." The Zorath ships slowly descended toward Earth, preparing to fire. But suddenly many of their sensors glitched. Their radars flickered. Their screens distorted. Something was interfering. Vorak, the Zorath commander, scowled. "What is this? A human trick?" But it wasn't a trick. It was Leviathan. Back on Earth, storm clouds formed above the ocean. Lightning struck wildly. A massive whirlpool spiraled in the center, glowing blue from below. The water rose like a giant tower, and from the middle of the storm, something pushed upward. A single glowing spine broke the surface, bright blue, shaped like a blade. Then another, and another. Waves crashed as the enormous creature slowly rose from the deep. Its body was hidden behind thick fog and roaring water, but its size was clear. No human warship had ever been this large. People watching from the shore stepped back in fear and awe. Some screamed, some froze, and some whispered a single word. Monster. But Rian knew better. This was not their enemy. This was their final hope. The Zorath fleet prepared to attack, but the waters below Leviathan exploded with energy. A deep, thunder-like roar shook the air, rattling buildings and ships alike. Lyra whispered, "It's awake!" Rian closed his eyes for one breath and opened them with steel in his voice. "They outnumber us 100 to 1, he said. "But they've never faced the Leviathan." The screen showed the creature rising higher, its glowing bones lighting the storm. The hook ends as Leviathan's true form stays hidden behind the fog, but its eyes open, two massive blue lights staring directly toward the enemy fleet. The Zorath fleet moved closer to Earth, filling the sky like a black storm made of metal. Their ships were long, sharp, and covered in glowing red lines. Every ship was armed with heavy cannons, enough firepower to destroy a whole country with one blast. 4 years, the Zorath had conquered worlds without resistance. Their soldiers believed they were unbeatable. Their technology was stronger. Their army was larger. And their leader, Commander Vorak, feared nothing. He sat on his throne-like command seat, watching Earth with cold eyes. "Humans think they can hide behind their ocean storms," he said with a smirk. "They will learn fear." His officers nodded. None of them had ever seen Vorak hesitate. Until now. Because some of their scanners were failing. Small errors. Strange noise. Signals from the ocean that made no sense. Vorak frowned. "What is this disturbance?" One officer replied, "Unknown, sir. The ocean below is radiating energy." "Human technology?" "No. Too strong. We do not recognize it." Vorak growled. "Scan again. I want answers." But he got none. Meanwhile on Earth, Commander Rian and Dr. Lyra Vance stared at the readings from the deep ocean. Leviathan was awake. Fully awake now. The entire base trembled with the creature's energy. The lights flickered. The screens glowed in unnatural colors. Lyra touched her forehead. "Its energy is rising too fast. If it keeps increasing, we may lose control." "We won't," Rian said, but even he wasn't sure. Leviathan was not a simple weapon. It had a mind. A memory older than their world. One operator shouted, "Sir, Zorath drones entering the ocean." On the large bridge screen, small metal drones dropped from enemy ships and dove into the dark sea. Their red lights shone like tiny eyes as they sank deeper and deeper. Rian whispered, "They are looking for it." Inside the ocean, silence filled the water. No fish. No currents. No sound. The drones continued scanning, sending live images to the Zorath flagship. Nothing. Nothing. Then, a strange blue glow flickered at the bottom of the screen. One drone turned its camera. A huge shadow moved in the darkness. The shadow was larger than a city. It passed slowly, like a giant sleeping under the waves. "Object detected," one Zorath officer shouted. Vorak leaned forward. "Show me." The image zoomed in. A glowing blue spine. A moving ripple across an enormous body. And a low rumble, deeper than thunder. Vorak's eyes narrowed. "What is this creature?" The officers looked at each other, confused. "Sir, it is not human-made." "Then who built it?" "No record matches this life form." Before they could say more, the feed from the drone suddenly cut into static, followed by a deep boom through the water. The second drone's screen shook violently. Something blurred past it. Metal cracked. Water rushed in. The feed ended. All drones were gone. Vorak slammed his fist into the arm of his chair. "Find it! Now!" But scanning only showed dark water and heavy distortion. "On Earth Station," Lyra whispered. "It destroyed the drones, without even rising." Rian nodded. It knows the enemy is here. The ocean surface began to change. Waves rose in strange patterns. Circles of glowing blue light spread across the water, like huge symbols. The storm above grew stronger. People watching from the coast backed away as the sea bent unnaturally, as if something huge was moving just under the surface. One child pointed and said, "Mom, the water is shaking." In the defense station, officers reported in panic. "Sir, Leviathan's heartbeat is rising. Ocean sensors are failing. Energy levels increasing. Too fast." Lyra gripped the table. It's sensing the enemy above. Rian stayed quiet. He watched the ocean through the large screen, waiting, listening, calculating. He knew this moment could decide the fate of Earth. The Zorath fleet repositioned. Their ships formed a huge attack formation shaped like a giant claw. Vorik stood in the center of his bridge. Prepare to strike. Destroy their defense towers and break their shields. Earth will fall today. But before he could give the final command, a loud sound echoed across the sky. A sound no human or alien had ever heard before. A roar. A deep, ancient roar rising from the ocean like the cry of a waking giant. It shook every building on the coast. It made birds fall from the sky. It made Zorath pilots cover their ears in pain. Vorik felt a chill in his chest, something he had not felt in many years. Fear. "What was that?" he demanded. No one answered, because no one knew. Back on the station, Lyra whispered, "It's calling." Rian stepped closer to the window. Clouds rolled like smoke. The ocean glowed brighter. The storm grew violent. He whispered, "Leviathan is coming." The Zorath fleet paused around Earth, unsure for the first time. Many of their pilots reported shaking hands. Strange errors. Shadows on their radars. Something was rising from the ocean. Something massive. Something older than any war. The water lifted upward in a huge column, glowing blue from beneath. The sky flashed with lightning. The world held its breath. Rian spoke softly, "This is the enemy that fears nothing, but now even they stop." Because the Leviathan was awakening fully, and its first strike was only seconds away. The ocean roared like a living storm as the Leviathan rose higher beneath the waves. Lightning cracked through the dark clouds, reflecting on the glowing blue lines running across its massive hidden body. The world watched in fear, awe, and disbelief. Commander Rian Holt stood on the bridge of Earth's defense station, eyes locked on the screens. "Everyone stay sharp," he ordered. "It's about to begin." Dr. Lyra Vance's hands trembled over her controls. The energy readings coming from the ocean made the screens shake. "It's unstable, but it's awake," she whispered. And awake Leviathan meant danger, not only for the enemy, but for everyone. High above the planet, the Zorath fleet continued to circle Earth like a ring of fire. Thousands of alien ships aimed their cannons downward, confident they could destroy the human world in seconds. Commander Vorik sneered. "Humans delay the end. They have no weapon that can." He stopped mid-sentence. One of his battleships suddenly blinked off the tactical map. No explosion. No warning. It simply vanished from the radar. "Where is ship K-79? Vorik demanded. His officers looked again, confused. "Sir, it is not destroyed. It's just gone." Then the screen flickered and returned. This time, everyone saw it. Ship K-79 was falling apart. The giant Zorath battleship, one of their strongest vessels, was breaking into two halves, slowly, silently, as if a giant invisible blade had cut straight through it. "No impact detected," shouted one officer. "No human fire. No missile trail. Something hit it, but we can't see what." Vorik's eyes grew wide with something he had not felt in years. Uncertainty. Down on Earth, officers gasped as the broken Zorath battleship fell from orbit, burning through the atmosphere like a dying comet. "What did that?" one whispered. Rian answered quietly, "Leviathan." It wasn't even on the surface yet, but its first strike had already hit the enemy. Lyra checked her readings again. Her voice came out shaky. "Commander, the Leviathan is not using missiles or beams. It's moving faster than our sensors can track. Something huge just left the ocean." Rian nodded. That's how it hunts. Inside the ocean, the giant creature twisted its enormous body, pushing through the water with impossible speed. Its glowing spine lit the dark sea like a long, bright blade. Its heartbeat echoed through the waves. Every movement created a shockwave. Every shockwave was strong enough to break steel. The Leviathan shot upward again, sending a spinning torrent of water behind it. It disappeared into the deep fog above the surface, invisible to human eyes. But not to the Zorath. Another alien ship shook violently. Sir, unknown force hitting our hull. Shields dropping to 60%. 50, 30. Screams filled the enemy bridge. The ship jolted again, harder this time, and Vorik felt the floor tremble under him. Then the image appeared on the screen. A huge shadow moving past the ship. A glowing blue line running across its side. A roar that shook the entire hull. The Leviathan. But only for a moment. Then it vanished again, back into the clouds. Vorik slammed his hand into the control table. Find that thing. His officers tried, but the creature moved too fast. Each sensor that attempted to lock onto it overloaded and shut down. It's not possible, one officer said with fear in his voice. No creature this size should move like that. Vorik growled. Then it is not a creature. It is a weapon. Back on Earth Station, Lyra stared at the readings with dread. Commander, Leviathan's energy is rising too quickly. It's using more power than we predicted. How long until we lose connection? Rian asked. Lyra swallowed. If it keeps rising like this, minutes. That was the danger. The Leviathan was powerful, strong enough to destroy fleets. But humans had only a thin connection to it. And that connection was weakening. Rian looked at the main screen, watching the fog move like a living wall as the creature leaped again. We need to guide it, he said. Guide a creature that size? Lyra whispered. We can't even control its heartbeat. But Rian knew something Lyra didn't. He had seen the Leviathan's eyes once. Years ago. Deep under the ocean. Eyes that felt alive. Eyes that understood. He believed the creature could hear him. He believed it chose sides. At least, he hoped so. In space, another Zorath battleship shook violently. The Leviathan sliced through the lower hull, leaving a glowing wound. The ship spun out of control, its engines screaming. Several smaller Zorath ships collided while trying to avoid the falling wreck. 3 more ships down, a human officer shouted. Rian kept his voice steady. Hold positions. Leviathan is pushing the fleet back. But Lyra pointed to her screen, eyes wide. Commander, look. The Leviathan surfaced for the first time. Slowly. Massively. Its enormous head rose from the water, glowing blue lines running across its armored skin. Mist rolled around it like a natural cloak. Then its eyes opened. 2 giant blue lights that shone through the storm. Everyone watching felt a chill. Leviathan faced the enemy fleet. Then it released a roar so deep, so powerful, the clouds above exploded with lightning and every ship, human and alien, shook from the sound. The creature had fully awakened. And now the real battle was beginning. The sky above Earth exploded with red light as the Zorath fleet opened fire. Thousands of beams shot downward from orbit, cutting through clouds and turning the night sky into a burning storm. The world watched from screens, rooftops, and shelters as the battle finally began. But something massive moved inside the storm. Something glowing blue. Something unstoppable. The Leviathan's huge body rose higher from the ocean, pushing aside waves like they were nothing. Its armored skin shined in the lightning, covered in glowing blue veins that pulsed like a giant heartbeat. The creature looked ancient, powerful, and angry. Commander Rian Holt watched silently from the defense station. It has fully awakened, he said. Dr. Lyra Vance kept staring at the energy readings, which were now far beyond what human machines were built to record. Commander, these levels are impossible. No creature should survive this much energy. Rian nodded slowly. That's why it's not just a creature. In space, Commander Vorik stood on the bridge of his flagship, eyes fixed on the huge blue shape rising through the clouds. What is that thing? He asked again, quieter this time. His officers trembled. Sir, it seems to be a living weapon. Vorik growled. Living or not, destroy it. The alien fleet fired again. Red beams streaked across the sky, hitting the Leviathan's body. But something strange happened. The beams bent. They curved away from the creature's glowing armor as if pushed aside by an invisible force. The beams hit the ocean or the clouds instead, leaving the Leviathan untouched. It kept rising, and then it roared. A deep, thunderous roar shook the sky and cracked open the clouds. Buildings on the coast rattled. Birds flew in chaos. Even the Zorith ships vibrated from the sound. Vorik clenched his jaw. Fire all cannons! Hundreds of Zorith cannons blasted at once, filling the sky with red fire. The light was blinding. Thunder rolled across the world. But when the explosion faded, the Leviathan was still there. Alive. Unbroken. Angrier. It lifted its enormous head toward the fleet and let out another roar. Louder, deeper, powerful enough to shake stars. Back on Earth, people watched from the beaches and rooftops in shock. Is that thing protecting us? One man whispered. A child held his mother's hand. Mom, is it on our side? No one knew. Not yet. But the Zorith were finally afraid. The Leviathan's glowing body began to brighten, turning from soft blue to fiery white blue. Energy crackled around it like lightning trapped inside its skin. Waves crashed outward. Clouds spun above its head. Lyra stared at the readings. Commander, this isn't natural. It's preparing something. Rian nodded. A counterattack. Up in space, the creature's glowing veins pulsed faster. Its massive tail rose from the ocean, creating a giant whirlpool. Its wings or fins, no one could tell what they really were, unfolded slowly, like huge metal bone plates. Then the Leviathan opened its mouth. A circular glow formed inside, small at first, then growing brighter and brighter. The energy shaped itself into a sphere of white-blue light. Sir, a Zorith officer screamed. Unknown energy buildup, directly aimed at us. Vorik shouted, raise shields. Maximum power. But they were too slow. The Leviathan fired. A beam of pure white-blue energy shot upward, so bright it turned the entire sky white. It struck the nearest Zorith battleship. The shield lasted 1 second, then shattered like glass. The beam tore straight through the ship, ripping it in half. The explosion lit space like a newborn sun. The shockwave hit 3 nearby Zorith ships, making them spin out of control. One collided with another and both exploded into flaming debris. Earth shook from the force. In the station, Rian whispered, that was only one shot. But Lyra was not celebrating. She pointed at the screens. Look at Leviathan's body. It's changing. The creature's glowing blue lines were now flickering. Some turned red. Its massive claws dug into the ocean as it struggled to hold its own power. It's too strong, Lyra said. It's feeding on energy, and it's losing control. Rian's expression hardened. He had feared this. Leviathan was powerful, yes, but it was also ancient, and it remembered things humans didn't understand. Some memories were peaceful, some were violent, and some were dangerous. In space, Vorik tried to regain control of his army. All ships, surround the creature, fire from all sides. But the Leviathan moved first. With a sudden burst of speed, impossible for something its size, it shot straight upward like a blue comet. It slammed into a Zorith cruiser. The impact crushed the metal like paper, sending pieces spinning through space. Then Leviathan twisted and swung its massive tail, hitting another ship and flinging it into a third. 3 ships exploded at once. Vorik's officers screamed as the shockwaves shook their bridge. This thing, it fights like it knows war, one shouted. Vorik bared his teeth. Then we show it real war. But deep inside, even he felt a cold fear. Back on Earth, Lyra's voice cracked. Commander, the Leviathan is no longer following its original command pattern. It's acting on instinct now. Rian stared at the giant creature breaking through the clouds, attacking without hesitation. It's remembering the old war, he said quietly. Lyra turned to him. What old war? Rian didn't answer. Because he didn't know enough. But Leviathan knew. and the sky was about to become even more dangerous. The Leviathan kept rising into the sky, glowing brighter with every second. Its huge body tore through the clouds, leaving a trail of blue fire behind it. The Zorith fleet tried to surround it, but the creature moved too fast, too sharp, too powerful. Down on Earth, the defense station shook as the battle continued above. Dr. Lyra Vance stared at the monitors, her face pale. "Commander, the Leviathan isn't listening anymore. It's acting completely on its own." Commander Rian Holt folded his arms slowly. "It remembers something we don't." "Remembers?" Lyra looked at him. "Commander, what does that mean? How can a creature like that remember anything?" Rian didn't look away from the screens. "Because Leviathan wasn't built recently. It was found." The room went silent. "Found where?" Lyra asked. Rian replied quietly, "Deep under the ocean, sealed inside an ancient structure, older than any human city. We uncovered it, not created it." Shock spread across the bridge. "So Leviathan isn't human technology?" an officer whispered. Rian nodded. "No. We only activated it. It has its own memories, its own instincts, and maybe its own purpose." Everyone stared back at the giant glowing monster on the screens, now fighting alone in the sky like a living storm. In space, the Zorith fleet launched a second wave of fire. Red beams crossed the sky, forming a burning net around Leviathan. But the creature's eyes glowed brighter. It twisted its huge body and disappeared into the clouds. The Zorith lost sight of it. Vorik barked at his officers. "Track it! Don't let it hide!" But before they could find it, something hit them. A shockwave slammed into one Zorith battleship. Its engines flickered, its shields collapsed, and it spun out of formation. Two more ships collided trying to avoid the falling giant. "Sir, Leviathan just hit us with something invisible," one officer shouted. Vorik growled. "Impossible! Show me the footage." The screen replayed the moment. A blue ripple, like a pulse of energy, spread from the Leviathan's body and struck the ships. It looked like a heartbeat turned into a weapon. Vorik's face hardened. "That thing, it used energy waves, not weapons." One officer gulped. "Sir, no creature should have that ability." Vorik's voice dropped to a low growl. "Then it is not a creature." Back on Earth, Lyra watched the readings rise higher. "Commander, Leviathan's energy pattern is matching something in the old ocean ruins. Something we never decoded." Rian finally turned to her, his voice low. "Because those ruins weren't human either." Lyra stepped back. "Commander, are you saying Leviathan was left here? Like a guardian?" "Or a warning," Rian said. Another officer jumped in. "But warning from what?" Rian pointed at the burning sky above. "Maybe from them. The Zorith." High above, Leviathan broke through a group of enemy fighters, smashing them with its massive tail. The glowing lines along its body pulsed, each pulse creating waves of energy that disrupted the Zorith ships. Vorik watched with growing anger and fear. "This beast fights like it has done this before." Suddenly, one of his officers gasped. "Sir, I found something." Vorik turned sharply. "What?" The officer zoomed in on Leviathan's glowing skin. There are symbols on its armor, markings, and they match ancient patterns found in other star systems the Zorith once conquered. Vorik leaned closer, stunned. "How old are those patterns?" The officer answered carefully. "Millions of years, sir." Silence filled the bridge. Vorik whispered. "Then this creature belongs to an ancient race. A race powerful enough to make this." Now even the fearless Zorith commander felt something cold in his stomach. Fear. On Earth, Lyra covered her mouth as she finally connected the symbols on Leviathan to the ocean ruins. "Commander, the markings match perfectly." She showed Rian the screen. "This creature was here long before humans. Long before any of our history." Rian nodded slowly. "It was sleeping under the ocean, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Lyra asked. Rian looked at the burning red sky. "For the return of the enemy it once fought." Lyra whispered. "The Zorith." Rian shook his head. "Not exactly. The Zorith are only the latest enemy. Leviathan fought something older. Something stronger. It was created to fight entire fleets. Maybe even empires. Lyra stared at the screen, terrified. Then if it remembers that war, it won't stop. Rian's jaw tightened. Exactly. Leviathan was not just protecting Earth. It was finishing a war older than humanity. In space, the creature gathered energy again. The blue glow became blinding, turning the sky white. The Zorith ships scattered in panic. All ships move. Vorik yelled. But it was too late. The Leviathan released a huge blast, larger than before, and a ring of white-blue light expanded outward, sweeping across the enemy fleet. 10 ships lost power instantly. 5 exploded. 3 were cut in half by falling debris. The Zorith fleet was breaking. Vorik stared in disbelief. This monster. It could destroy us alone. Yes, sir, an officer whispered. We are facing something built for extinction-level wars. Vorik clenched his fists. Then we must kill it now. But as he gave the order, the Leviathan turned its head toward the flagship. Its eyes locked onto Vorik's command ship, and the creature began swimming through the sky straight at them. Fast. Too fast. The final showdown was coming. The bridge of the Aurora shook again as another enemy blast passed close to the hull. Warning lights flashed red across every screen. Crew members tried to stay calm, but even their steady hands trembled. The enemy fleet had formed a full circle around them now, hundreds of warships locking in, tightening their trap like iron jaws. But Captain Rhea did not blink. She knew something the enemy did not. Deep inside the ship, far below the command decks and far beyond any visitor's eyes, the Leviathan waited, silent, cold, and still. The giant machine didn't breathe. It didn't think. It didn't even sleep. It waited. And now, the moment had finally come. The first signs of awakening on Deck 22. Heavy steel locks began to slide open one by one. The sound echoed through the metal corridors like distant thunder. A-chunk, a-chunk, a-chunk. Engineers stepped back as the last barrier lifted. The chamber filled with bright blue light, and waves of energy rippled across the floor. For months, the crew whispered rumors about this machine. Some said it was a weapon. Some said a creature. Others swore it was both. But until now, no one had truly seen it awake. The ground trembled. Then a huge glow appeared, first faint, then brighter, then blazing like a newborn star. The Leviathan opened its eyes. 2 massive orbs of light stared through the chamber walls, unblinking and alive with power. The entire deck shook under its rising energy. It's awake, one engineer whispered. But this was not fear. It was awe. The enemy makes their move meanwhile, outside, the enemy fleet pushed forward. Thousands of small fighters broke formation and closed in on the Aurora. Captain, enemy squadrons crossing range. Shields at 40%. We can't take another direct hit. Captain Rhea stood tall. Hold the line, she ordered. The Leviathan is coming online. The enemy commander appeared on their main screen again, smiling coldly. Your ship is failing. Your people are tired. You cannot escape. Rhea turned to the comm officer. Send him a message, she said quietly. Tell him he is right. We cannot escape. But we also do not need to. The comm officer nodded and sent the line exactly as she said. A moment later, the enemy commander frowned. What does that mean? He demanded. Rhea answered with only 2 words. It's time. The beast rises. The Leviathan's chamber split open as thick armor plates folded back. Giant locking clamps detached from its arms, shoulders, and spine with loud metallic snaps. The machine stepped forward, slow at first, as if waking from a long dream. Its enormous frame shook the entire ship. Liquid cooling systems flashed like streams of light across its armor. Then the Leviathan straightened its back and let out a low, rumbling roar. Not a sound of anger, but a sound of power charging through its core. The crew could feel the vibration in their bones. This is impossible, whispered one officer. But Captain Rhea only smiled. Begin synchronization, she ordered. Massive cables fed energy into the Leviathan's core. The lights on its armor turned bright blue. Plates along its arms opened like wings, revealing glowing patterns shaped like veins of fire. In that moment, it looked less like a machine and more like a living titan. The last warning the enemy commander tried one last time. "Human ship, surrender now. This is your final chance." Rhea leaned forward. "No. This is yours." She raised her hand. Her voice was calm. Her command was final. "Release the Leviathan." The birth of a storm, the Leviathan burst out from the lower hangar with a thunderous blast. A shockwave rolled across space as the giant took its first step outside the ship. Enemy pilots screamed through their comms as they caught sight of the monster. It's huge. What kind of machine is that?" But it was too late for questions. The Leviathan lifted its arm. A deep glow formed in its palm. Energy gathered like a storm of light. Then it unleashed its first strike. A beam tore through space, slicing through 20 enemy fighters in one shot. They exploded into bright sparks that faded instantly. The battlefield fell silent for one heartbeat. Then the enemy commander shouted, "All ships, open fire!" And the real war began. Space lit up like a burning storm. Every enemy ship opened fire at once. Thousands of red beams cut through the darkness, all aimed at one target, the Leviathan. But the monster did not run. It did not hide. It moved forward. The first wave of blasts hit the Leviathan's chest. For a moment, clouds of sparks covered its armor. When the light faded, the giant was still standing. Not a dent. Not a crack. Not even a scratch. The enemy commander stared in shock. "What is that thing?" he shouted. "Why is it not falling?" No one had an answer. The Leviathan strikes back. The Leviathan raised its arm again. This time, the light in its core grew brighter, so bright the crew on the Aurora had to shield their eyes. A heavy hum filled the battlefield. Then the giant punched forward, sending a shockwave of blue fire across the enemy lines. Not one ship, not 10, but an entire row of battleships exploded at once, vanishing in silent flashes. The enemy fleet broke formation in panic. "Pull back! Retreat! It's destroying everything!" But the Leviathan did not slow down. It chased them. One step shook space like thunder. One leap covered miles in seconds. It grabbed an enemy cruiser with one hand, an entire cruiser, and crushed it like paper. The debris floated around it like dust. Inside the Aurora, Captain Rhea watched the battle from the main screen, her eyes steady even while the crew cheered and cried in disbelief. "Captain," a young officer whispered, "is this really human-made?" Rhea nodded. "We built it. Not for war. Not for glory. We built it so humanity would never be powerless again." Another officer reported, "Enemy numbers dropping fast. Their flagship is the last one standing." Rhea took a deep breath. This was the moment everything came down to. The final enemy. The enemy flagship, the largest ship in their entire armada, fired its full-power cannon. A massive red beam streaked toward the Leviathan, bright enough to blind sensors. It struck the giant square in the chest. For a moment, the light covered everything. The Aurora shook from the shockwave. Monitors flickered. Crew members grabbed onto their stations. Then the light cleared, and there the Leviathan stood, still alive, still burning with power, still angry. The enemy commander froze. His voice cracked. No, this cannot be. Nothing can take a full charge." Rhea finally spoke. "You still don't understand," she said. "You outnumbered us. But you never overpowered us." She leaned closer. "And you never faced a human Leviathan." The last blow. The Leviathan crouched low. The energy around its body thickened like fire wrapping around a meteor. Then it launched forward, faster than any machine its size should ever move. It tore through the red beam. It tore through the enemy shields. And it tore straight into the flagship. For one silent second, everything froze. Then, boom. The flagship exploded in a burst of red and gold light, spreading across space like a dying star. The war was over. The giant stands alone. Where the enemy armada once floated, now there was only silence. Wreckage drifted slowly across the empty field. The Leviathan turned back toward the Aurora, its glowing eyes softer now. The lights across its armor dimmed, returning to a calm blue. It wasn't roaring anymore. It wasn't fighting. It was simply waiting for its next command. Captain Rhea exhaled, her voice low but proud. "Bring it home," she said. The crew cheered as the Leviathan floated back toward its ship like a victorious guardian returning to rest. A new legend begins. The message spread across human space within hours. One Leviathan destroyed an entire fleet. Outnumbered 100 to 1. People whispered its name like a myth. Enemies feared it like a nightmare. And humanity finally had hope again. Because everyone knew this war was only the beginning.